Welcome everyone. I'm Cody from UniSC, a part of our Future Students team, and we look forward to discussing the Business Intelligence and Analytics Masterclass this evening. Tonight we have a range of activities available to you. We'll talk about, a little bit about UniSC, introduce a masterclass that will give you a really great insight on business intelligence and analytics, as well as moving over into a panel discussion. We have some past students, some academics who are joining us this evening, who will answer all your questions. In regards to answering all your questions, you'll see a Q&A tab available at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on what device you're on. Feel free this evening to throw in your questions straight away. We'll be able to answer them with the support from our UniSC staff, Maria and Raj, as well as Dr. Jane Menzies, who will be answering your questions live. We will be utilizing some of those questions a little bit later on in our panel discussion, but feel free to start throwing them in now and we'll answer them throughout the presentation. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work and live and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Tonight, I'm joined by some very special guests for the Masterclass panelists. We have Dr. Puneet Vasa, who's our Senior Lecturer in Business Analytics, who will be also presenting the Masterclass this evening. We also have Dr. Jane Menzies, who is our Program Coordinator of Postgraduate Business, as well as a UniSC MBA graduate, Sue Mears, who also works in our local community. If you don't have a wealth of knowledge about UniSC, we are a multi-campus institution where we have availability of studying online or on campus, as well as that if you are an online student, you have access to all our campuses across the East Coast, as well as down at UniSC Adelaide. So we have Fraser Coast campus, which is up in Hervey Bay. This is a very close-knit campus where all our students and staff know each other very well. You'll actually see them having lunch together quite often. We as well have a Gympie campus and Caboolture. These are also one of our smaller campuses, as well as what we like to call our study hubs, available to you that if you are on campus or online, you can utilize these facilities whenever you like. We have two major campuses, which is Sunshine Coast and Moreton Bay. These are what we call our full service campuses. Some of our programs are available for teaching on these campuses, especially if you are looking at the MBIA or the MBA, as well as the fact that if you are an online student, you can utilize a lot of our library services, our computer labs, as well as our social hubs. Now it's time to move into all things business, as well as moving into our masterclass. Dr. Jane Menzies, over to you.
Thank you so much, Cody. As introduced, my name is Dr. Jane Menzies, and I'm the postgraduate program coordinator for the business studies. And I'd just like to give you some compelling reasons as to why you might want to study at UniSC. We're very proud to say that in 2024, we actually received #1 in Australia for teaching quality in business, according to the Good Universities Guide, which is a really good achievement for a regional university, especially when we're competing with the bigger universities. We also received #2 in Australia for postgraduate teaching according to the AFR BOSS ranking as well, and #1 in Queensland for overall student experience. The other good thing about our studies here at UniSC is that we are AACSB accredited, which is a business school accreditation that only 6% of business schools around the world have that accreditation. Again, just emphasising the quality of our studies here. So and the reason why we win these awards is that we often utilise small class sizes. And in the next slide, I'll just talk about our graduate certificate of business intelligence and analytics. And so basically, you might be interested in studying in this program here at UniSC, and it might be the case that you actually don't have a prior university bachelor degree, Well, in fact, if you don't have that, you could actually come in through the graduate certificate pathway and study 4 subjects here. So in this study, we usually have 2 required courses. So one is evidence-based decision making and another one is in managing data. And then students get to pick a range of elective subjects relating to business analytics as well. And as we can see on this slide, we have the Commonwealth supported places for our graduate certificate, which basically saves students around $6,648, which is a significant saving. Okay, so that's a bit of a pathway option into our Masters of Business Intelligence and Analytics, which is a 1.5 year program or a 3-year part-time program. And basically here we just extend the study of students from 4 subjects to 12. And you can see the range of subjects that you can do with, kind of more basic analytics, going into more applied business analytics, fintech, managing data, programming, and a bit of artificial intelligence as well. So, and we end off with a capstone project, or what we call MBA 730. Like our graduate certificate, we also have a very significant cost saving, as we also have Commonwealth supported places for the Masters of Business Intelligence and Analytics. And then I just wanted to also talk about our MBA program here at UniSC. Our MBA, similarly to the MBIA, is a 1.5 year program for full-time students or 3 years for part-time. And really our focus here is on kind of the business fundamentals. So what is it that I need to know about business to be able to, I guess, take a step up in your career, as an example. So we, go through subjects such as finance and accounting, a bit of leadership, a bit of marketing, a bit of strategy, and so on and so on. So like our other programs, we also have the Commonwealth supported places, giving students a significant discount. Okay. If we have some international students on the line, interestingly, we actually also have some discounts for our Masters of Business Intelligence and Analytics program, and also our dual degree. So in fact, students can do a Masters of Business Intelligence Analytics plus a Masters of Business Administration. And for these new programs, which is new, coming up in the next trimester, is that we're actually offering 20% off to international students. There's also a 15% international student scholarship and a 20% excellence scholarship. So lots of things for students or prospective students to think about. So you might be thinking, how might I apply for postgraduate study at UniSC? And there's 2 ways that you can apply, depending on if you're a domestic student or an international student, but it's all pretty simple. What you need to do is go to visit usc.edu.au. You would then go and create an account in Apply USC. Then you'll upload all your supporting documentation. So supporting documentation would usually include things like your resume, and your previous studies, if you've done previous studies, and any other documentation that you might be required to lodge. And once you've done that, we'll be in touch soon. And we tend to process applications quite quickly. International student applications are pretty similar, although there is a little bit of a difference, because it might be the case that you might, as an international student, you might want to actually go through an international agent that is within your home country, that will help you apply for the programs. But this can also be, you can also apply directly to the university as well. So there's a bit of details on how international students can apply there too, which is quite similar. Okay, so that's a little bit of some of the details around study here at UniSC, but I'd like to hand over to my very good colleague, Dr. Puneet Vasta. And Puneet is a senior lecturer in business analytics, and he's going to give you a masterclass on what data or business intelligence and analytics is. So over to Puneet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I'm trying to start my video here.
Hi everyone. While Paneet is working on his video, if you could start throwing your questions in the Q&A tab, we'll be able to start answering them throughout the rest of this presentation. Any questions around our programs, entry requirements, if you are an international student and you do have some questions as well, we do have UniSC international team here as well to help answer those questions live. So start throwing them into the Q&A tab and we'll be able to answer them throughout the masterclass. Thank you very much. Paneet, if your video isn't working, that is completely okay. Your sound is perfect. So feel free to present accordingly. Thank you.
Sounds good. I suppose I'm going to have to proceed without the video. Thank you, Jane, for the introduction. I am a senior lecturer in business analytics at the University of the Sunshine Coast. I hold a PhD in economics and have worked in various business intelligence and analytics roles for renowned companies such as the Walt Disney Company and the Royal Dutch Shell, the big oil company. Before joining USC, I taught economics, analytics, and data science at Lincoln University in New Zealand. Today, I'll be talking about business intelligence and analytics, what they are, the role they play in decision making, what BI and analytics professionals actually do, and how you can prepare for a career in this space. I'll also use some examples to illustrate some key ideas and help put the concepts into context. So let's start with the very basics. What is BI? Well, business intelligence, or BI, is all about turning raw data into actionable insight. Data have become ubiquitous, and businesses are under pressure to make sense of all the data that they are gathering. BI systems help organize, collect, clean, and analyze these data from multiple sources like sales, customer feedback, or operations, or marketing, and help organizations make informed decisions. BI is not just a tool. You can think of it as the engine, the technologies, the strategies that power data-driven organizations. What is business analytics? These definitions are not cast in stone, so it's a good idea to align behind what these terms in fact mean. Business analytics is the process of examining trends, patterns, and insights from data. It is a little more focused. It emphasizes analyses. It emphasizes taking the data, playing with the data, and then deriving meaningful insights from the data. Business analytics is in fact subsumed within the umbrella of BI, with data underpinning both. While data are foundational to decision making, data are not sufficient. Judgment is also integral to making informed decisions. Let's consider an example to understand how data and judgment are related to each other and how they complement one another. Suppose a marketing team has a budget that it allocates to reduce customer churn. It works with the BI team and it works with the data scientists within the organization to help identify customers that are most likely to defect. However, the data scientists may be oblivious to the details of what the marketing team wants to achieve. They are simply told that, hey, we want you to tell us who is the most likely to defect, the most likely to churn. They are simply asked to predict the likelihood of every customer to churn. And the data scientists build an accurate predictive model and provide the results to the marketing team. And the marketing team takes these data and sorts them such that the customers who are most likely to churn are at the top of the list of customers that they want to target. The team sends out messages, offers, discounts, and promotions to these customers. And once it runs out of money, it stops. It was going down the list from the most likely to churn customers to the least likely to churn customers. Later on, they find out that the needle on churn did not move. Churn did not decline. The question is why? Why did it not decline? Well, it did not decline because the marketing team were not asking the right question. The right question is not who is most likely to churn. The right question would have been who are the customers that are likely to churn but can be persuaded to stay? And the answer to this question would have provided insights that could have been leveraged to focus on people who may have a high or a low probability of churning, but because they are on the proverbial fence, they could be persuaded to stay. Answering this question may have led to a higher return on investing in marketing initiatives. Business analytics and predictive modeling can provide the factual grounding for strategic decisions, but it is judgment that helps contextualize the findings to generate value from BI and analytics processes. In this particular case, the example that we just talked about, it required human judgment to identify the shortcomings of the question and then reframe the problem to ask the right question. In fact, I think many would agree that the key to competing successfully in the age of data, in the age of predictive analytics, business analytics, lies in a question that only a human can answer, at least for now. And the question is, what is it that you want to predict? That's the key. Asking the right question. Historically, data were expensive to collect, they were expensive to manage, and leaders and managers relied on their judgment, their gut feelings to make decisions. But judgment itself is shaped by years of exposure to patterns and outcomes. It can be a manifestation of deeply embedded expertise. For a long time, judgment held sway in decision making, especially when data was so expensive to manage and to gather. The decision was easier to make by simply relying on judgment. Data were used relatively sparingly. However, over the past 2 decades or so, data have become much less expensive to gather, to store, and to manage. The cost of implementing analytic solutions has fallen down as well. Analytics are now more affordable, accessible, and scalable. And therefore, it stands to reason that their use has risen sharply. Now, while it is true that the proliferation of data has displaced and may continue to displace many roles, they are also creating opportunities for those who know how to work with data. And this is the essence of complementary skills. The increase in demand for one leads to an increase in demand for the other. In this case, we're talking about judgment and we're talking about analytics. What we're saying is that the growing demand for data and predictive analytics is likely to raise the demand for those people with the right skills and the right judgment to derive value from the analytics. Furthermore, data can also help counteract the pitfalls of biases and preconceived notions that people hold and that gets into the way of making good decisions. Biases can often lead decision makers astray, and data can help course correct, if you will. If you think about the state of affairs now, the modern approach to data-driven decisions, you'll see that data are trying to play, and they are managing to play, a very key role in decision making. There was a time when data teams were finding it hard to situate themselves within organizations, but things have changed over the last couple of decades. Data have proven their worth. Analytics teams have proven their worth. And there's a trend towards democratizing data within organizations. People want employees at different layers of the organizations to have access to data. And due to these initiatives within organizations, data are now permeating through different layers of organizations, aligning people behind a common, consolidated source of information. And that in turn is improving consistency and alignment within organizations. And now let's turn our attention to a question that might be of strong interest to you. What do BI and analytics professionals do? Well, what they do can be classified into four broad categories. They describe data, they diagnose the drivers of trends and patterns, they predict outcomes, and they prescribe solutions. And correspondingly, we can classify business analytics into the following four categories. We have descriptive analytics that deals with what happened. We have diagnostic analytics. Why did it happen? And then we have predictive analytics that based on what we have seen, based on our assumptions, based on what we feel the future is going to look like, we predict this outcome. And then we have prescriptive analytics. What should we do about it? How can we move the needle? Let's think about this in the context of a specific example. So let's say there is this online gaming company with a subscription model, and it wants to increase its revenue. And its revenue depends upon the number of subscribers and the price the subscribers pay for their subscription. That is how revenue is determined. How should the company go about increasing its bottom line by forecasting demand? Well, the first step is to describe the data, to understand the lay of the land, if you will, understand past sales trends. Are sales increasing at a rapid rate, or are sales starting to plateau? What is going on in specific regions? Those are the sorts of things that you first want to wrap your head around. You want to describe the state of affairs. And then you want to diagnose the reasons driving those trends. Why are the trends the way they are? You could use statistical analyses, machine learning, surveys, and focus groups to understand these drivers, to diagnose the issues that you are interested in. Once you have that information, then you can start predicting outcomes. Again, you can use statistical analysis, you can use machine learning to forecast future demand and revenues. You can build assumptions, you can build in what if scenarios. But what if scenarios have to be informed by certain causal associations? What if we lowered the price? What is going to happen to our revenue? What if we increased prices? What is going to happen to our revenue? Somebody might say, oh, you are selling your product at $5 a month. That's what subscribers pay. Have you considered lowering your price to $4? That's a 20% discount. You might tempt more buyers to subscribe to your product because it will be more affordable. Somebody might say, oh, wait a minute. Our product is superior to all the other products in the market. We are a differentiated, unique product. Somebody might say, we want the price to not be $5. We want it to be $6. And the customers are going to be so price insensitive that they will continue to buy our product. $1 is simply not going to make a difference to how many subscribers we have. Different people have different opinions. The only way to understand what is the best course of action is to run an experiment. Experimentation remains the gold standard for identifying causal associations between different variables. In this particular case, you want to understand the causal effect of changing the price level on the number of subscribers and revenue. All these steps describing data, then diagnosing the drivers, then predicting outcomes, and then inferring causality, and then providing the results back to the decision makers with important caveats. All these steps are important to making informed decisions. Now, in many cases, such experiments can reveal revenue maximizing price points within days. And after identifying the optimum price points that maximize your revenue, you can implement those price points at scale. But it requires careful planning and coordination and humility as well. These experiments tend to last for a week, perhaps a month. But subscribers may subscribe to the product for years or decades. We simply cannot learn anything about how subscribers are going to respond over the long run to changes in prices. They may not defect right away, but they may churn after a year because they don't want to pay $6. They were happy paying $5. There might be some competition in the future that comes in at an even lower price point. So it's important to be humble, to acknowledge the limitations of such experiments, acknowledge the limitations of data. They do not provide insight into long-term churn in this instance. As far as running the experiment is concerned, there might be some price leakage if customers share pricing information during the trial. So, for example, you're conducting this experiment where you have this control group that gets to see a price point of $5, but there is a treatment group that gets to see a price point of $4, and then there is another treatment group that gets to see a price point of $6. And then you're going to be comparing how these different groups performed in terms of subscription rates, conversion rates, and so on and so forth. However, as I mentioned, pricing information could leak during the trial. However, by aligning the engagement, e-commerce, and sales teams in advance, these risks can be mitigated. The key point of this example, I suppose the moral of the story is that data analytics have to be embedded within systems. That is where the future lies. How do data analytics and business analytics professionals work within systems? How do they work with the customer engagement team? How do they work with the sales teams? How do they work with the e-commerce teams, the finance team, the operations team? You see, data are used by each of these parts of the organization. And analytics teams bring all these data together to help make informed decisions. What can you do to become a data analytics and business analytics professional? Well, the bottom line is that analytics is a technical field. Therefore, learning the technical foundations is important. You have to be able to use Excel, program, use SQL, use BI platforms. But to become a data analytics professional, to become a BI professional, you need more than just technical fluency. Yes, you need to learn these tools that I just mentioned, but they are just the start. The ability to tell a clear, actionable, compelling story, the ability to weave interesting narratives with data is invaluable. And that story only makes sense if you understand the world you're analyzing, if you understand the context within which you are making decisions. How are decisions being made? What people are making decisions? What do people care about? What does success look like? You have to understand all of these things to enable decision making, to tell good stories, and to ask the right questions. And you have to build the right intuition. And that understanding grows, that intuition grows by asking better questions. Don't just ask what happened, ask why did it happen? Data analysts work across various domains, as I mentioned during the demand forecasting example. So reading widely is very, very important as well. It helps you build a broad analytical framework, a mental model that allows you to quickly absorb new information, understand different perspectives, and forge comprehensive, well-rounded solutions. Analytics is not just about crunching numbers. It's about making sense of complexity. In conclusion, I want to assure you that the future is bright for analytics professionals. I believe it will be shaped by how well we blend technology with human insight and how thoughtfully we bring people, processes, and data together. Thank you for your attendance and attention. I'll hand it back to Cody.
Thank you, Puneet. That was really insightful. And for someone who's actually a past business student majoring in strategic marketing myself, I actually feel like this is something I might want to explore deeper and have complete understanding when analytics plus emotional decision making come together, how much they kind of support each other in leaning in with your gut, but backing it by data, which is something I took away from that masterclass just then. We're on to our panel discussion, and we are joined by, as you've met, Dr. Jane Menzies, as well as Dr. Puneet Vatsa. But we also have a past graduate from Uni SC, Sue Mears. Thank you for joining us. I have a couple of, I guess, preloaded questions. I'll get started. But for our live audience, if you want to start throwing some questions into the Q&A chat, we'll be able to start answering those live. There's been some amazing ones that have already come through that we'll definitely throw live, even though they've been already answered. But feel free to start throwing them in, and we'll throw them to Jane, Sue, and Puneet. Now, Sue, if you could just introduce yourself, I guess your connection to Uni SC, as well as maybe some of your work history would be fantastic.
Um, I've been lucky enough to have worked in corporate IT industry for the past 25 years. Um, I've been extremely lucky to have travelled to a lot of countries and places around the world and explored, I think, the cultures, the business decisions, the journeys. I'm really excited to be part of Uni SC, and it was through my studies at University SC that have or shown me that I actually have a passion for teaching. So that's sort of another journey I'm picking up. So I've worked for Cisco Systems. I've recently also worked for our Sunshine Coast Council as an enterprise architect. And my learning journey has been quite a few years in the making. So yeah, I've finished the MBA last year and I went straight into a master's in ICT now. So I'm continuing my journey with Uni SC from a studying perspective. And yeah, happy to answer any questions that folks may have on the line.
Thanks, Sue. There's definitely some questions coming through, and I guess it's actually around the programs that I guess some of our attendees are really wanting to jump into. And Puneet and Jane, this might be best set for you. What does the workload look like for these programs, and what is the difference between session versus trimesters? And what are the type of assignments that or assessments that are available to, I guess, online students? Jane, you might be the best person to answer this.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Yeah, so we've basically got our workload would, if you're doing one subject, our workload is probably about 10 to 12 hours, and Sue can either attest to that or tell me that it was actually more than that, but usually about 12 hours per week. And in our program, we have sessions, which are shorter 6-week sessions, which is basically a condensed model. And then we also, some of our subjects run in trimesters as well. So that's usually a 12 to 13 week model, but it will be going to a 12-week model. So anyway, and what are the types of assignments that students might do? They might be anywhere from presentation, reports, case studies, analytics. I don't know, Puneet might want to kind of highlight some of the types of assessments that he might usually run in analytics. Puneet.
Well, the assessments are likely to be very hands-on. You will have data to play with. There is no way to think about analytics, to learn analytics without doing analytics. It is not a spectator sport, if you will. We'll have industry-based case studies involving real-world data sets and decision-making scenarios. We will use simulations or data storytelling exercises. I talked about the importance of telling good stories with data to bring people from different backgrounds along for the journey. There will be lots of simulations to help people hone these skills. There will be hands-on labs using platforms like Power BI, Tableau, SQL, R programming, Python. And as Jane said, there's a capstone project in collaboration with industry partners where students will address some real world problems with BI tools. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it actually sounds really hands-on. And I guess following that question with those, I guess, those hands-on learning environments, is there a chance to engage and meet other students who might be also working and studying in this industry? Obviously, with postgraduate qualifications, sometimes our students are already maybe in the industry and they're wanting to upskill from there. Is there a way to engage with other UniSC students in this sort of learning setting?
Sue might actually want to, reflect on her experience and the types of people that you met and how you met them and those types of things through class and so on.
Yeah, it's actually, I started my MBA journey actually at Griffith University. And I have to say, it's the reason why I started there was I was pursuing a sustainable degree. One of the challenges I found, at least in a larger community, university in some ways, is it can be hard to develop relationships and connections when one, you live quite far away, but also I think when you're a large university, it can be difficult to really connect at a much closer level with your colleagues and your cohort. After speaking to Dr. Menzies, I was just so impressed with being able to engage and talk to our lecturers in a way that you get the sense that they get to know you, they get to understand what your goals are, what your learning journey is like. And so, Jane basically convinced me that I needed to change and do the rest of my MBA at UniSC. And I found the ability to develop relationships with my cohort really interesting, and it was a very diverse cohort, right? So you might find that the online cohort might tend to be the more mature professionals that are already working in the industry, and they tend to be more online because it's easier for them to do the evening classes. If you come on site, which I did both, you'd find that your cohort is, you might have a very diverse mix in terms of the on site, because you'll also have undergrads going through to postgrads, maybe younger. You have a lot of the international students, as well as a mix of professionals. And I think that diversity creates quite an interesting environment for discussions in class as well. So absolutely, particularly in a regional, slightly smaller university, that ability to build relationships is, I think, a lot more connected than, say, some of the larger universities.
Yeah, and I think a key aspect you pulled out is the flexibility between online and on campus. And, just because you're an online student, there are subjects when you are picking them that you choose to be on campus student and have the flexibility of doing half and half depending on what your work looks like and what flexibility you need. So definitely something, if you are pursuing this program and want to see what sort of study arrangements works with you best, you can contact Dr. Jane Menzies directly and be able to help understand that, is this the right fit for you, and what does a study plan look like for you as well? And I guess this goes on to my next question, especially we're very much focused on the MBIA and the grad cert in IA. Is it necessary to have a background in data or business intelligence to thrive in this program? And Puneet, I think this might be a really great question for you.
The short answer is no. A background in data or BI is not required. However, what's required is curiosity, the willingness to engage with data, develop analytical thinking, and build skills progressively through the coursework. And the program is designed with a diverse student cohort in mind. It begins with foundational courses that introduce core concepts in data analysis, BI tools, decision making, frameworks, and such like. So, no, you do not need a background in BI or data analytics to get started.
Yeah, it sounds like you learn a strong set of skills throughout the program with minimal knowledge prior to starting, and those skills that you will really reinforce, I guess, your skill set in leadership in maybe some of the roles you're doing now. For example, I definitely work in the front end of, I guess, in engagement areas, and I think analytics would really help me in my leadership, in my decision making, especially when you're working in spaces where there's budgets required and how to make the most of a budget. I know for me, I get really passionate when I'm given a very small budget, and it's like, oh, how far can I really go with this? Like, versus having a really big budget and you're kind of like, okay, I need to try and find ways to make this more efficient, or using this wisely and making sure, once again, you're using a similar headspace. But I really do thrive in those environments where you get a really small budget. You really got to try and, like, I guess it's a really silly phrase that some of my friends, but they say bleed the apple, which doesn't really make sense to me, but it's something that a lot of my cohort use all the time, including some of my academics. So I guess, like, we've learned, entry pathways, I guess, what it looks like to gain entry into the program. But how can completing one of these postgraduate business degrees help open up opportunities to step into a leadership role at work? And Dr. Jane, that might be suitable for you.
Yeah, it's that's a really good question because we often people come and study an MBA or MBIA, and I think it's just giving people the tools and the skills and the knowledge to make better decisions or to design new strategies or to lead new projects. So we definitely see our students after they're finished. Like one of our students. I think he was sort of like a chief financial officer or something of his company. Oh no, sorry, he was sort of one step below, and he actually became the CEO of his small to medium enterprise after doing his MBA and also doing his Australian Institute of Companies Directors course as well. So that was a really good example of a student who they'd had some great work experience. They chugged through their MBA degree and then they got that opportunity. And we've seen other examples of that. One of our female students who was working at BHP, she's an environmental and safety kind of officer, project officer. And again, at the completion of her program, stepped into a more senior role within BHP. So, very good example, there's lots of examples of that happening. So it's really about, developing all of those business skills that you might need, to take on those more senior roles.
Jane, if I could also add, I think one of the other opportunities that an MBA or a business degree offers at a postgraduate level is because the courses of the courses that you study can be quite broad. And I think for many professionals, even having worked in the industry for a while, if you haven't been exposed to human resource capital, human capital management, if you haven't been exposed to finance and economics, not only do the degrees open up pathways or leadership opportunities for you, but I think it also exposes other areas of passion and talents that you may not know that you had. So, for one, I did my undergrad was in economics, and I have to say, I didn't really get it back then, but actually doing the economics again at a postgraduate level, it connected, it made sense, and I found a renewed passion for economics and behavioral economics. So this is not just I think for potential students, this is not just a learning journey to, hey, I want to get promoted, but I want to explore what else does business offer. And what else can this learning journey open for me in terms of not just your career, but your life, your potential new hobbies and passions and areas of interest that can engage you well beyond completing your degree?
Thanks, Sue. And hearing it from a student perspective is the most important thing when it comes to, hey, I went through this, and this is what was really important to me, and this is how I've used it. And I just started reflecting on my own student journey and being a past business student and just an undergrad. I haven't pursued my postgrad studies, and I go, I still remember my first year, finance, economics, and accounting. Now, I did a major in strategic marketing, but I remember those 3 units more than the rest of my degree because how much they impacted not just my professional life, because it is the backbone of every business, but also my personal life at the same time. So they were really foundational skills on how to make decisions and how to utilize money, and what goes up, something has to come down. And they were just really key skills that I really needed in every aspect of business, from work to personal. Now, I've got I have some questions around the masterclass that you just presented. And the example that you've given, if a price experiment was leaked to one of the groups, does it corrupt the findings of the experiment? And what would the next steps be? Now, this is a really good question.
This
Puneet?
is a really good question. And I messaged Dan back indicating that if we are unable to get to his questions today, I'd be more than happy to have a chat with him about these questions. They're fantastic questions. So, does a leak compromise the findings of the experiment? Well, yes, and not necessarily. it depends on the extent of the leak, the severity of the problem. So I suppose the next step is going to be to assess the extent of the leak and then do some sensitivity analysis that, all right, if the leak has caused a problem of size X, then we need to work that into our analysis. That might help create some scenarios with the leak in mind. Rerunning the experiments might be a good idea, but often that is not feasible. These experiments take a long time to negotiate with all the stakeholders within the organizations, and I'm speaking from experience over here. Rerunning the experiment is ideal, but very, very difficult. However, in digital products, testing is often baked into the product itself. In those circumstances, you can rerun the experiment with safeguards and get your results. In fact, I have seen some experiments, some companies running experiments daily on hundreds of thousands of users. Well, they have millions of daily active users, so they have the luxury of testing each and every upgrade, each and every change they make to their offerings. So in summary, yes, a leak is not ideal, but it may not be it may not completely undo all the good work that you have done. But it's important to take measures to work that into the analysis. The next question Dan asked was, with the introduction of AI and vibe coding, has the industry already started to see the barrier of entry lower in regards to technical foundations? Yes, the barrier to entry is a lot lower. Tools have become easier to use simply because people have access to a lot of resources that can help them learn and adapt their codes really, really swiftly. That said, while it has become easier, understanding the logic, understanding the data structures, and decision-making processes is still important. You see, AI tools still hallucinate. They give you output that is wrong. You should not be using it. And you can identify the mistakes only if you understand what you are doing. At this point in time, AI can be used as a junior research assistant that helps you do everything that you want to do, but you have to check everything that it does. Does that answer your question, Dan? I hope it does. If not, hey, send me an email and let's chat about it more.
Thanks, Paneet. We only have time for 2 more questions. The first one, and Paneet and Jane, this might be suitable for you. Does the course have any specific skills in regulatory intelligence or in data governance? Do you get any of those learning outcomes?
Paneet might want to answer that question.
Could you please repeat that question?
Does the course have any relevance to regulatory intelligence, or do these courses and subjects cover data governance?
Well, there will be some discussions about governance and privacy and ethics. There is one course that will deal with it, but this is not the core of the course of the program.
Yeah, it is a component of most of our business degrees, especially around ethics, sustainability, and decision making. It definitely does exist as one of the components across most of our business programs. Now, just the final question for this evening, and Paneet, this might be definitely suitable for you, is what future developments do you foresee in this field, and how can professionals prepare for them?
Excellent question. The field is evolving rapidly. And I think the future of BI and analytics is going to be defined by how by intelligent tools and how they're embedded within systems to facilitate decision making and interpretation. We'll see increased automation, augmented analytics, where AI supports or even drives analysis, to Dan's point. However, we will need people to interpret those findings. I talk about the importance of judgment, about the importance of asking the right question, about making sure that you are predicting the right thing. Yes, your algorithms can generate accurate predictions if they're done well, but you still have to get the algorithm to predict the important thing, the right thing. There is going to be increased automation. There's going to be issues with privacy and data governance and ethics as well, as data become more ubiquitous and data are used more regularly. There will have to be some considerations given to governance, privacy, and ethics. That's how I see the future of data analytics. If I were to summarize what I just said, I would say that the future belongs to those people who can work as complements with the intelligent tools that are being developed at a breakneck pace. And it's important to see how those tools are embedded within systems.
Completely agree. Thanks, Paneet. And thank you, Dr. Jane and Sue, for joining us this evening and obviously answering all our attendees' questions.
Pleasure.
As we move into the final part of this evening, I just want to once again say thank you to our panelist members and our guests. We're going to move into the final chapters as well as how to connect with us from here. So why UniSC? We're #1 in Australia for teaching quality in our postgraduate business. We have a modern, flexible approach to learning. This means you can study on campus, online, or a combination of both. We have a big focus on employability, as well as you can tell from this evening, learning from our experts. If you do have further questions, you can connect with Dr. Jane Menzies directly, as well as you can talk to our study experts or book a campus tour. You can just receive one-on-one advice, as well as walk around our facilities and see what learning on campus or online could do for you. If you do want to just call our Student Central team, who have a wealth of knowledge across our postgraduate programs, not just the MBA or the MBIA, you can give them a call in business hours between 075430 2890, or just send them an email. They're a team who have a wealth of knowledge, as well as a team that can connect you to our academics if you do have more personalized questions. That's everything.
My camera finally worked.
I can see you there now, Penny.
Anyhow.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you on campus or online in our following intakes, and look forward to seeing you, if not at one of our open days. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.